Driver, start your engine! In the beginning, stock cars outran the police to deliver the hooch to our ancestors. So sweet. Are you ready for a trip down victory lane, where Richard Petty's winnings were insane and Dale Earnhardt put everyone to shame? Canadian Junior Handley is in the Hall of Fame. Live from Haldeman County, it's time for the Driver in Deep podcast. Are you ready?
Hello and welcome everyone to the Driver in Deep podcast, brought to you by wingnutsports.com. So Alex, the government has loosened a few restrictions this week, and we were finally able to get out for a round, or actually 2 rounds of disc golf, which more or less went great.
Absolutely. It was fun to get back out for sure. You know, our first round took a little longer than usual because on the first hole, you had a brand new disc you had to try out, and you lost it into a neighboring yard. And, of course, we never found it. I'm still sure that I seen their dog come running over towards the fence line. I'm positive that thing took it and ran. But, you know, then I think on the 9th or 10th hole, you fired one high, the wind catches it a little bit, and it gets stuck in a tree about 50 feet up. And it took us about 20 minutes of throwing sticks and rocks and whatever we could find up there to try to knock it down, but we got it. And, I mean, it's not like regular golf where you lose a $2 ball and throw another one down and let her rip. I mean, these things are worth $15 to $35 a piece.
Yeah, and you know what? No question. That disc did go in the backyard. And the family that was there, they're having a pool party. And they invited me in to look for it, and they even came and helped me try to find it. But I think that could have been a cover. You know, I think you're right. That dog could have been very well trained to grab those discs and just run. You know, I'm going to have to keep my eyes open on Facebook Marketplace for gently used discs for sale. Oh, well, whatever. You know what? Easy come, easy go. But as for the one that got stuck in the tree, with my newfound power, I'm not surprised because I am throwing it a lot further. So sometimes you have to take the good with the bad. And in this case, it did. I don't know how it got stuck up that high. But
I just have one question. How did you find power when you haven't played in 3 months or 2 months or something?
I'm a student of the game, Alex. I've been watching YouTube videos of the best of the best. Paul McBeth, Simon Lizotte, Paige Pierce. And you know what? You learn quite a bit from watching those videos. Maybe you should watch a couple.
Yeah, it helped you a ton.
Yeah.
50 feet up.
Yeah, well, in that case, not so much. But anyway, I know one thing. If that was your disc in the tree, you would have scaled that tree faster than a lumberjack just to save yourself that $30.
100%. I'd have climbed right to the top if I had to, man. Anyways, listen, it was great to get outside, do something different for a change. And, it was, like you said, we got 2 rounds in. It was a blast. Anyways, we have a great guest today. And for the most part, all of our guests have some sort of a connection with both of us or one of us. And in this case, I've done a ton of things with this guy. And, because of working with him, I've got to do a lot of cool things. And I've also learned a lot from him.
You know, I've heard some of the stories of the cool things you guys have done together, and I really hope that our listeners enjoy hearing some of these stories as much as I have over the past few months. Our guest today is none other than Alex Tagliani, one of Canada's most famous race car drivers of all time.
He definitely is well known, Mark. Let's welcome racer, husband, father, entrepreneur, all-around good guy to the show. How you doing, Tag? And thanks for joining us on Driver in Deep.
Hey, what's up, guys? Very happy to be with you guys.
Hey, Alex, this is Mark. I'm so glad you could join us in Nags today. I don't know if you remember me or not, so let's get this out of the way. We did meet briefly a couple of years ago when the Pinty Series was racing at Jukasa Motor Speedway, and it had been an unbelievable wet spring to that point. I was in the campground helping campers get settled like I usually do, and you arrived in your motorhome looking to get it parked in your spot. And I saw you and I mentioned that you might not want to park in that spot because we already had a few people towed and motorhomes in that area in particular were getting stuck. And I believe your response to me was something like, "I'm good, no worries." And And the next thing the next thing
he
that
can
happened,
drive anything.
Yeah, the next thing that happened was me calling for the tractor to come pull you out. So do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember the story a bit differently though, but yeah, I was yeah, it's always been my worry with the big bus, to get stuck. But I asked if I could maybe be at a different spot, but you told me this is your spot. You said that Nagy allocated the spot, and I needed to be in that spot. So you definitely made people respect the rules. So that's one thing for sure.
Well, that's
So I
the first
followed the rules.
Tagliani.
I went into my spot.
That's a first Tagliani following the rules. Holy smokes! That's a weekend from hell for sure for Mark
But
and his
then,
team
but
out
then
there.
you guys did everything to help me out, and was definitely felt like lucky to have you guys and know you guys, because you went over and above to help everyone. So thanks for that.
Oh,
You still got me a really good weekend.
Yeah.
We got settled, and then we got relaxed for the race.
Well, I'm glad you had a really good weekend, because it wasn't so great for us. I don't know how many people we towed out of there.
It worked out. It worked out.
It was out.
Anyway, I don't even know where to start with you, buddy. I mean, you've pretty much drove everything. You've had a ton of success along the way. And I know you started in karting, and your dad is big. He's a great karting mechanic. I met your dad, of course, and he's into it. And I know he's into it now again with you now. But what did you do after karting? Did you do other Formula stuff, or did you go right to Formula Atlantic? How did that work?
Well, it's pretty interesting because my father and I seem to have like the same type of 360 thing that going on right now. My father, he started as a mechanic because his father, my granddad,
who got you started in Italy?
Who got me started in karting in Italy when I went for a trip to learn how to speak Italian. He got me this little go-kart, and then he got me hooked. And then he basically sent the go-kart, by boat. And he said, here's your kid in the cart, take care of him now. So, but my father had really good background of being a good mechanic, but he also started a performance shop. And as he was working on sports car and, normal car as well, he got hired and asked many times to operate different race cars along the way. So in that same garage that I, grew up, I saw Formula Atlantic engines, I saw rally cars, and really big names, Jean-Paul Perus, John Buffum with the Audi, he worked on some Formula Ford. He did engines for ice racing, Formula 2000 engines. So, and then the GT cars. Then he got into GT cars, and then he took care of Porsche in the Rotman's Cup Porsche that we had in Canada. He took care of 2 cars and a big team from his shop. So he was taking care of that. So basically, I was like always at the racetrack on weekend, and then he sold his business, and he went into karting, and he started, basically preparing engines, and he always had passion for karting because before he got into this karting, he started the 125 shifter class in Quebec with a promoter and a journalist. So he wasn't karting at first, got fully involved with cars, and a speed shop, and then got back into karting now. And it's been 20 years that he's in karting, preparing engines. He's very well known here, so he's just like one of a kind. It's tough to find people like him that have that knowledge that they can build karts and build engines, like with the quality and that he's doing. He's constantly in contact with Italy as well, so he has a lot of contact there, and that helps as well. So, and me, I started my career by doing go-karting with my granddad. So I started in karting flat out, and then obviously after karting, to answer your question, I went straight into open wheel, but with very limited budget. So I was renting one ride here and one ride there and just try to get my signature on my license. And then after the entire career that I had, you know, I'm just back into karting now. So same as my dad. So I know he following. I think I'm following him basically because he did it first. But yeah, and so I got back into karting, and now we're working together. So, and I was just talking to someone not long ago, and I was saying, man, it's if there's one thing that I really enjoy lately, even with all the stress and all the hard work and the late nights and putting together this business, it's the fact that I can see my dad every day and I work with him and I really enjoy it. And last weekend we went to test. I took my shifter cart out and I went to test, and the people from CRG are here. So they're working on the rentals inside the building, all the software issues and stuff like that we're working on. And they decided to come in Tremblant with us. And one of the two guys that is there, one is the tech guy, and the other one was the team manager while Max Verstappen was racing for CRG. So he was there with me, and we work on the kart. And so with only 20 kart on track, without all the grip level and all that stuff, I ended up running the pole lap of, last year's race. It was so fun to drive. The kart was so fast. The engine was so good. It was one of my best tests ever. And it's been 25 years that I'm not really fully in a go-kart. So, and the guy looked at me and he goes, there's a big race in Vegas. And, if you want to do it, I'll work on your kart. So,
Nice.
I mean, I don't know what he saw. I don't know if, if I ever going to do it or, maybe just with the team. But, I fully enjoy the physical demand and all this stuff. So I go back in karting and yeah, so I was in open wheel, straight away, renting rides here and there. That's how I got out of karting. But can I say that I really got out of karting? Never, because somehow I always stay connected with a go-kart. It took a long time before I got rid of my go-kart, and now I have one, and I'm always going to keep one because I think it's just so good for training. It's really good to stay fit and being in something when you can't be in your Pinty's car, right? So
Yeah.
that's good.
I think that's great how it's come full circle for you. And after karting, at some point you ended up driving for Forsyth Racing in Formula Atlantic, which ultimately gave you your shot in Champ Car in 2000. And that opportunity came after the devastating loss to everyone in racing in late 1999 when Greg Moore lost his life at a race at Fontana. How well did you know Greg? And tell us about the opportunity to go to Champ Car Racing.
Greg and myself and other players, team member, we worked together because in those days, players were very involved in a racing program, and so we were doing a lot of PR and a lot of promotion together. I knew Greg almost more as a person than a racer, because we were always in an environment where we were doing PR, doing conferences, doing all kinds of things, right? And so we joked a lot, and we did a lot of jokes, and probably things that I cannot even say, in front of all you guys. But
I was going to say in front of Bronte, maybe.
No, that's no problem. I can say, but we played a lot of tricks to mechanics and to each other in hotel rooms and on the road and with rental cars. You can figure it out. We were prankers, right? So we had a lot of fun, and so in '99, I find out that Greg signed for Penske, and he was gonna leave the team at the end of the year, and he was going to go race for Penske in 2000. I think he signed a 5-year contract, if I'm correct. And so the team was going to end up looking for a driver, and they organized a test in Sebring. And during that time, I was focusing on try to get into an IndyCar, knowing that Greg was leaving for another team. And finally, when I got the ride, they invited me to Fontana to be part of the team after I got the ride and I got the deal to be part of the team for the last race of the year.
So that was arranged before Greg lost his life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So,
okay, cool.
so basically, I did the test in Sebring. There was other drivers testing, and basically, I got the deal, and so they signed me, and they invited me to Fontana for the last race to start to be with the team and get acquainted with everybody, since we were going to do a test with the 1999 car before the season's over. So I was there as a spectator and as a future team member and future teammate to Pat. Pat had a couple of years of experience in IndyCar. He raced with Bettenhausen, and then he went for team players. So I was kind of like the little, first time rookie there. And so I was there during the weekend, and it was a weird weekend, to tell the truth, because lots of things happened. So first of all, it was kind of like Halloween weekend. If I'm correct, it was I think it was like
October 30th, I think. Yeah.
30th or 31st of October. And Greg broke his hand in the paddock on his moped. He got, I think, hit by a car that was like backing up, and he fell and he broke his wrist or his hand. And so I was there. So can you imagine the stress? I'm thinking, I don't want to be in the car. Like, no testing. I don't want to be the sub. And, obviously the team was correct, and it was they were smart. So they called Roberto Moreno, that at the time was considered like the super sub, because he was subbing lots of drivers, either from injuries or whatever. And he always kind of did like a really decent job in the car. So he already had a seat molded for ovals. You put him into a player suit, and the guy could actually drive an Indy car in a race weekend. So they called him, and Greg didn't want to be sub. So he ends up leaving and going get like some sort of a carbon cast for his hand. And we were thinking, man, like, why? It's just unimportant, and at the time I thought like Greg was, I think, I don't know, not even in the top 10 in the championship. I think he was fighting for 11th or something. I don't even know. It's like something weird. And so anyway, I was like, okay, so there's no reason why doing that. But, it's easy to talk like this afterwards, but during the weekend, we saw that and thinking, like, why? How can you drive with that thing in your hand? It's going to be difficult, whatever. Plus, we knew he signed a really good contract with Penske for 5 years.
Right.
So there's no incentive, there's no championship to defend or to fight, whatever. So anyway, I felt weird anyway, looking at it. And, but Greg, man, he just wanted to drive. He wanted to drive, and he didn't want to leave the team that way. He just wanted to compete for the last race of the season as equal, with everybody in the team. And that's the way he was. That's the way he was thinking, and he was not really thinking all of that. He just wanted to be in the car,
Right.
And,
wanted to finish his job.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, he starts the race, and 11 laps into the race, he lost it, and the incident happened. And I'm telling you, like, from that moment, there was, and I will always remember this. It's just like I don't know how the words to describe, but it's almost if, it was the end of the world. Like someone died, and we knew way before it was announced as well, right?
Right.
And so, like, we knew something was not good all along before we got the news. So can you imagine, like, the entire scene, where, the team, the mechanics, everybody saw the crash, like, it's not good, right? And so, it's not the end of the world for, the entire human race, but it was like that. It was just completely destroyed. And, so anyway, when they announced it, like, Pat was really in bad shape. I was wondering, like, man, do I really?
And for those listening, you're talking about Patrick Carpentier, right?
Yeah. So Patrick was in the players' trailer, and he was really not in good shape. And I'm like, what? Like, should I really be starting this like that? Like, even like my first day as a team member, this happens. I start asking myself, like, lots of questions, and then I start thinking about, like, man, in Toronto, downtown Toronto, in the cab, like, the tricks that Patrick and Greg play on my hotel room at the Weston Harbor Castle, okay? They stuck, like, something in my card slot. They locked my room. I couldn't get in. And they basically glue something onto my front door to make me, like, look bad. And they were hiding behind the walls to basically, like, look at me arriving and seeing this particular thing that I cannot say what it was, but on the door, right? And
they didn't put saran wrap on your toilet seat, did they?
Well, it was not good. Not good that I was embarrassed enough to go get someone to help me. So I kind of, like, grabbed some paper and, like, detached it. Anyway, it was embarrassing. But then I had to go downstairs and get someone to help me to finally get into my room. And so I start thinking about all these moments, like, in all the little games and tricks and all the fun stuff that we had. And I couldn't really convince myself that it was real, that he was not going to come back. For a moment, I was like, man, he was right there, like, with his moped and with all the tricks and all the stupid stuff that we did together. And, like, in one moment, boom, he's gone, from racing. And it was my first time that I was put in front of the situation that the sport that I was passionate about, and I'm still am, but still, the first time that I'm putting in front of a situation where, okay, this is risky. Because, as drivers, like, people tell you, it's a risk, there's risk, it's dangerous, and you're like, yeah, whatever. But, and that's why they always say, there's the drivers that crashed, and the drivers that will crash. Like, you always going to have something that's going to happen in your career that will just wake you up and make you realize something. Just saying with words, it's nothing. Well, this moment was a moment where I said, oh man, all right, okay, this is no joke. Like, this is real, what just happened there. And that was the first time for me. And it was my first day, like, at the track as a future IndyCar driver. So, trust me, it was a pretty mentally interesting wake-up call, that I really never, say it, like that, but, you're asking. So, it was,
That's fair.
yeah, it was a tough, couple of weeks, after with all the stuff that were coming into our heads.
With Forsyth, they had all the Canadian drivers like you and Patrick and JV and Paul Tracy. Was that because of the players thing? Was that because of that partnership that the Canadian drivers were?
Yeah.
That was kind of like a mandate.
Yeah, players got involved. Imperial Tobacco's great company to work with. They were involved in all kinds of sport, with, their different brands. They wanted to be in tennis. They sponsored the tournaments, of tennis, in Montreal. They were
Players Challenge.
Pardon me? Toronto, yeah.
Players Challenge cars.
Right? Yeah, exactly. They sponsored the Camaro Players Challenge car, for years. They sponsored the Montreal race. They sponsored the Three River Grand Prix. It was called the Players Three River Grand Prix. They sponsor Atlantic cars, Indy Lights, IndyCar. So with the Players brand, and because of that, they just want to help Canadian drivers, and that's why, the Canadian, racers program around Canadian motorsport was built by them,
man, they did so much to kickstart all you guys, and to kickstart, like you say, just Canadians in racing in general. I mean, the impact they had on all of us is still going on today for sure.
Exactly.
I know that you and Paul Tracy,
guys, I'm gonna, I told you that before, but I'm gonna take a bite of my food, right? Because I got home late and I'm hungry. So sorry.
Problem.
Go after it, buddy. Go after it.
And we're gonna talk a little bit about why you got home late in a little bit. So
yeah, in a bit, yeah. So as I was saying, you and Paul Tracy are great buddies, and I've had a chance to hang with you guys a little bit, and he was a guy that ultimately replaced you at Forsyth. And I'm sure at the time it was disappointing, but everybody remembers. I keep thinking back. Every time I see you guys together, I always think back about you and him fighting in San Jose when he entered the racetrack and took you out, and there you are on pit road, wailing on each other. But I always think back how smart you were, man, because you left your helmet on with that big guy, and that was so funny. But it's funny how all these crazy things happen in the sport, and everybody at the end of the day remains to be friends.
Yeah, I'm still good friends with Paul. I was good friends with him before. We've done, like some pretty cool Halloween parties at home. 1 year was at Pat, 1 year was at his place, 1 year was at my place.
1 year we're all living in Vegas?
Yeah, exactly. And Miguel Duhamel, the superbike rider, was there with us.
Yeah, he was there too, yeah.
Yeah, so Bronte was cooking, and next Halloween party or next party was Anik, Pat's wife, and like we were very close. But I always said, it's racing, like you're fighting for the same piece of real estate at high speed, and sometimes there's gonna be some rubbing, and with IndyCar, it's tough because it's
one touch.
One touch, and you destroy a lot of things. And on that race, like I didn't have a full spare car, like what, Paul was able to have. My team, we had one car that was like fully built. And, anyway, we were running third. Paul was running second, and he made a mistake in a runoff. He comes out, and I know I see him, coming in the straightaway, do like a 360 or 180, and so I'm committing to the corner, and obviously I have the right of way because I'm on track, but he decides to just basically come in, misjudge my position on the track, and thought that he could basically come out in front of me, but his nose went straight, like in the cockpit, so drilled a big hole in the tub, and one of the wishbone got detached. And in the days, like the wishbones were attached, under the tub. So that wishbone basically broke, and basically your legs are just above those wishbones. So it could have basically literally like go through my calf, and would have been a big problem. So, the car was destroyed. I saw the, like the gravity of what could have been. But I look at my car and I know that, we're going to have issues on the next weekend because we need to get this thing fixed in an autoclave, because it's a carbon tub. And I'm thinking about like the budget, and I get angry, by the minute, because by the second walking back, because I'm thinking, like if I would have just continued to do what I'm doing and he would have just let me go by, he would have been third, I would have been second. But if he would have been quicker, he could have gone by me later in the race.
Sure.
And I would have got my podium, second or third. I don't care. I would have walked out of there with a car, happy with no extra dollar of budget, and then more budget on repairs, reduce your budget for the rest of the year on other things. So like all of this comes to my mind. I'm walking into the pit lane, and then I'm thinking, oh no, I'm just gonna go straight to go to see him, and I'm just gonna tell him like what you did. But I said it many times, when I was doing this, because Paul and I knew each other and we've been to party together, is you're angry at the person right then. But I think what would have made the difference is that when I confronted him, if I would have seen that he was sorry, or he would have said, man, sorry, Alex, sorry, Tag, I made a mistake, whatever. Like, but no, it was like the guy that I knew that we were doing party together and we had fun was like, pushing me around, like just, yeah, whatever, just jump into your spare car. It's a crash, it's a wreck, it's a race incident. And that's what ticked me off, because if he would have stopped me and just said, sorry, man, I just really F up, I'm sorry, then, because we were already friends, I would have like just kind of like let go and just like it happens before with other things that happen,
Sure,
either with us or with other drivers. When someone comes to you and he's really apologetic, then you're not gonna jump in his face. You just like, whatever. You're pissed for 1 minute, and then you just let it go. But that's what really made me angry at the time, because I didn't really feel that he felt sorry. And I don't know if it because the embarrassment of the mistake that he just did, and by confronting him, I didn't realize that I confronted him in front of people while he just did like one of the biggest rookie mistake you could do. Plus it was like a safety issue. And maybe that's what really offended him, that a friend came and confronted him in front of people while while he's already walking with the head between his legs. So, like, you don't realize these type of things, but I think that's what triggered the entire scenario, and then afterwards, when, everything settled, I mean, we continue to stay friends, and it's what it is, right? I mean, you don't keep a grudge for, forever. So.
Yeah, I've noticed too, buddy, since, we've been hanging around together, you never want to tick off a French, Canadian, Italian. I've experienced it.
Did you get any good shots in? Was this as good as a hockey fight, or was it more of a...
No, actually, when
it was the Leafs against Montreal, so you know who won.
No, actually, I was in front of him, and I didn't want to go away because I wanted to continue to say my piece, and I was continuing to push to see a reaction of guilt from him and try to see if he was going to apologize. But instead, he was just constantly pushing me away to try to go away, and that's not what I wanted to see from him. So anyway, at some point, he pushed me harder, so I grabbed him, by the neck. But because I had my helmet, he ended up like scratching his cheek on the side of my visor, right? And then when we tussled down and I stand up, he had blood coming out of his cheek. So I looked like I just, basically beat him up, but I did nothing, I just basically fell on him. So,
check it on YouTube, Mark.
Yeah, I'm glad we...
like 1 million views.
I'm glad we set the record straight here. Alex, being fairly new to racing myself, one thing I've learned, and have witnessed is that the highs in racing are very high and the lows can be extremely low. And although you've had many high points, the terrible wreck you had with Alex Zanardi, even though it wasn't your fault, that must have been tough.
Yeah, that was the second thing. The Greg situation was the first one. And the I had like small little wreck, like break a wishbone and, flat tire, tag a wall, break a front nose, whatever. But, like, I've never been like a crash damage guy, like I've kept my cars pretty clean. I had like 4 huge wreck, in my career, that hurt a lot. And that one was pretty much the worst because not in physically, because Fontana and Milwaukee were 2 wrecks that kind of like hurt me more physically, but that's another. And then at the end I'll tell you all the kind of connection, the stuff that like those type of things made me start thinking and realizing, and I'll give you some goosebumps. But we're there. It's 9/11 weekend. It's already bad enough what's going on in North America, and so there's a big debate if we're gonna race or not, if they're gonna cancel it or not. And they decided to go ahead and do the race, but because we were a bunch of North American people in a bowl at the Germany Oval, the next day there's a lot of German army guys that are arriving on site. So can you imagine racing with like people with machine guns? It's just doesn't make sense. Anyway, so we ended up like racing anyway. But I remember a lot of people were not for it. Some people were saying that a lot of the guys there didn't have their head into the race because they had a lot of friends in those buildings, some even family members, like crew members. So I don't know. But anyway, we ended up starting the race and we did the race. And I think 11 laps before the end, there was like Pat, myself, Tony, Canon, Alex's teammate. We're racing, and we have a good race. There was a Kenny Brock, Max Papis also, like, kind of like those 6 cars are really in good shape. 4 Reynards, very fast on that track, and we were probably fighting for the win or for podiums. And Alex had a tough season, and he was in a position to do really well, so he comes into the pits and change the tires. No, he doesn't change the tires. He goes out with the same tires, comes out, and he needs to get out, to try to leapfrog us. But we're coming. So Pat is in front of me. I don't follow him in tandem because the turbulence are too high. So I basically stagger myself, and so literally, like I see from the corner of my eye, just like someone coming up. So I just basically steer to the left and hit the brake. And at that point, I know it's going to be, for sure, it's an impact. There's no way there's no impact there. So he's basically splits the 2 players' car, but misses Pat's rear. But, like I was just behind Pat. So like I'm right, he's in my way. And I don't know who it is. I don't even see the color of the car. But when I basically hit that car, there was like an 85G impact. And then I raise up in the air and I see the sky. And then somehow it got blanked. I got knocked out. And then when I collapsed on the ground, like I didn't feel anything at that point. But then, cause it was a forward impact. So when I woke up in the cockpit, to go to the hospital, I was complaining about like a really bad lower back. and they asked me if I could move my legs and my feet, and I said yes, but like the pain in my lower back was really bad, so they didn't know if I had a broken back or something from either the frontal impact or when I went back on the ground. And I don't know how I didn't get a broken back. I don't know how, because Justin Wilson broke his back in Mid-Ohio from jumping over a curb in turn 1, landed in the grass, and literally broke his back from bad landing, from jumping over a curb. And I just went through a car up in the air way higher than, hitting a curb. And when I banged back on the ground, I didn't have front tires either. So the tub just hit the ground straight. So no rubber. Anyway, so touched some wood, didn't have any broken back. But then I'm in the hospital, and so people start coming to see me, and I'm asking, like if other guys were involved and if everybody's okay. And as I ask that question, I see the face of people change. I notice something's weird, because they don't look normal. They would have answered right away, but I make like some sort of it was an uncomfortable question to ask. And then I find out that it was Alex that got involved. So then his wife comes in my room and comes and see me to see if I'm okay. I'm like,
wow, nice.
Wow. I mean, what's going on?
Did you know what happened to Alex at that point or no?
Nope. So I'm just asking again. So now I know it's Alex, and I know something is not. And then they're telling me that it's not good.
Right.
Well, just those, 3 words is just enough to know that something's bad. And they don't have to get into the details, but that, something's bad. So now you start, asking questions, but nobody is telling you anything. Nobody is telling you what happened in the wreck. Nobody is telling you what happened. Nobody is just talking about the wreck, because so you don't know he lost his legs. You don't know nothing. You're just there. Plus, I went through hours of testing, scans, internal bleeding, a bunch of different, things they do at the hospital. And they just didn't want to release me until they could see that all the vertebrae and, didn't have any compression fracture or anything like that. It was just really a big muscular bruise. And they didn't understand how I got that. So it was just luck, right? Just luck.
Yeah.
Because all the situation all the wreck was just, okay, maybe this guy lost his leg, but this guy has a broken back for sure. But nothing happened. So then, long story short, everything, I know everything is out. I know what's going on. And so we have another race in England, in Rockingham, the weekend after. So I come out of the hospital, I communicate with Daniela, I wish that he's okay. I want to make sure. So I just text with everybody. And then I end up arriving at my hotel room in England, and it's a foggy day. It's raining. We're on a kind of a bed and breakfast hotel. I always remember. We're on a bed and breakfast hotel, and you were on the ground level. I opened my window, my room, and it's just, I can't see shit. It's just foggy. It's terrible.
It's England.
So now I'm like, I'm taking my toothbrush. I brush my teeth, and I don't know, 5 minutes go by, and I'm wondering, when did I start brushing my teeth? Don't know.
Oh boy.
Then I sit down on the couch, and I start thinking, and then I look at my watch. I've been on the couch for an hour, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what's going on here? So my head is constantly thinking about the wreck, and also, like, I wanted to see it, because even if people tell you that, it's not your fault, you're
Right.
nothing you could do, blah, 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 I'm not just going to believe what people say. I want to see it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So you still hadn't seen it
No.
the next week?
No. So then I see the wreck. I see the data. I see, because the IndyCar people came and said that the steering input that I put to the left, and the deceleration from, I don't know, 240 miles an hour to 228, or, just that small deceleration,
Wow.
the impact, basically made it that I survived as well. Because if I would have hit, like 3 feet to the right, I would have, first of all, killed him, because in the tub,
Sure.
the impact would have been right on his side, and that part of the tub would have not opened, and the impact, instead of being 85 G's forward, would have been like going straight into a wall, because that's the solid of the tub. And and I would have gone through the radiators, the side pods, the tub, him, and then both we would have probably died there, both of us, from the violence of the frontal impact. So anyway, you see all the data, you see the footage, you see all that, and you're still thinking, oh man, like, what do I do here? Plus, there was like the Greg thing, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, look at this, okay? So it's freaky, because so now you start thinking about when Greg died, now this, and Pat, when Greg died, he said he wanted to change his number. He didn't want to have number 33 anymore. And me in Formula Atlantic, when I was at Players, I was number 66, and I was leading the championship, and in one race I broke a CV joint in the back, and I was really leading the championship afterwards, and then another bad luck happened until I finished third with all these, like stupid bad luck, leading races on top of that, not when you're running fifth, but when you're in the lead. And so when Pat said, I don't want 33, Jerry Forsyth gave him the 32, and I said, I don't want 66, and he gave me number 33. So we were 32 and 33. And anyway, Greg died. Obviously, we know he was number 99. And when we had that wreck, Alex and I was 33 and Alex was 66.
Oh no.
Wow.
And 11 laps before the end, and Greg was 11 laps into the race.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? So, but I'm just going to come back to the incident with Alex, but Dan Weldon was 11 laps into the race, and he was number 6.
So I was, I didn't know if you were going to bring that up, but I was going to bring it up. I don't want to keep talking about dark sides of our sport, but I was going to say the same thing. We were teammates that day.
Yeah. And anyway, like, you start thinking about that. And now, I mean, so anyway, like I said, I was like out, my head was not there. And just to prove to you how my head was not there, when I went, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. So everybody tells you that, but you're wondering why I was there.
What could you do different?
Why me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not my fault. Perfect. I see the data. I see the footage. Great. I'm convinced. But why was I involved in that?
Mm-hmm.
So then I go race in Rockingham, and like, I can tell you, in 2003, when I was on the front row in Long Beach, I could tell you what the front spring I had on my Lola, and who put them, and which crew chief I had, and I could tell you, how many miles per hour we were hitting on the back stretch and on the front stretch, and like, I have like so much good memory about like racing, technical stuff. And Rockingham race, I started, don't know which position. I don't know how many cars I passed. I don't know who passed me. I have no clue when I pitted. I have no clue where I finished, what position I finished, how many laps the race was. I tell you, I have absolutely no clue. One race in my entire career, I have absolutely no idea what happened. I have no recollection of what happened in the race. And this is to prove to you that my head, a week after the incident, was not in a good frame of mind.
Yeah.
And I questioned myself if I should continue racing, because I'm wondering, like, man, I'm going to endanger myself. I'm going to endanger other people. I'm on track, not knowing where I am and what I'm doing. You know, if my brain is not able to remember, that means I was not looking at what I was doing. I was just there turning wheels, you know, like probably not even looking in my mirror, or doing it naturally, but not even doing it, you know, right. So anyway, I come back home, and the flight is terrible. I'm not happy. I get home, and my granddad was in Germany for that race. He came from Italy, drove, and came to see me. And I never had the chance to say bye, because I got taken into an hospital from the wreck. So anyway, I don't know if I'm going to continue racing. So finally, I go race per race, try to clear my head, try to work on my stuff, just try to get back. And I was doing all right, but never as good as when I was in Toronto Indy, and Alex shows up, and he arrived in the pit lane, and we had a big hug. We start chit-chatting in Italian, like nothing happens. Really happy to see him. And I always remember the joke he made. He said to me that with his new legs, he was about an inch taller, so he could be more taller than his wife. And with his accent, with his like funny face.
Oh, he's such a character.
So yeah. Anyway, so I kind of like felt at that particular time the way he took the entire situation, felt relief and
Gave you some closure.
oh man, I can't even tell you how. It's almost if I felt energized that weekend. I was like a machine, like it was like I just wanted to race, just wanted to drive, wanted to drive. Um, and but all these things, they make you think, and people could say I think a lot, maybe I think too much, but the welding situation, I come back from Japan, I finish fourth, and I'm at home, and I get a phone call, and I'm informed that he's gonna drive my car. Yeah. And my team didn't even tell me. And my owner was on the phone with me asking me for some watches for the golf tournament. So I felt like really weird that I was not even aware and didn't have I was not told that I was going to be replaced by Dan, because it was this big scenario that they were going to take like a driver and do the GoDaddy's challenge somehow. And
start at the back.
Start at the back, win the race, $5 million to the winner, 2.5 to the team and 2.5 to a fan or something. I don't even remember that entire thing. So anyway, the team, felt bad. They decided to work on I missed Kentucky race because he was going to practice in Kentucky, and they were going to give him my pole car from Indy and my pole car from Texas, because I was on the pole at those two super speedway that year. And really? he goes to Kentucky, and I think he finished 13 or 14, nothing special. Then he goes to Vegas, but the team wanted me to do the last race because I was sixth in the championship before that, and I was fighting with Castroneves for sixth. And the team prepared my road course car, and they said, well, Brian Erda Autosport is going to run you, the same way they ran him at Indy. Yep. So I said, okay. And so I arrived there, and I don't know what's going on, but I'm running fourth with my car from Japan, dressed up as an oval car. And I go talk to my engineer, Todd Malloy, that was engineering Dan at the time, and he said, you know, I don't know what's going on. You know, like he engineered me all year long, and he said, I don't know, like the car doesn't want to go. It's like, so Dan's running, I think, 31st in lap time. But I come out of the car and I go see Elio, and Elio tells me, what the hell are we doing here? We shouldn't be racing here. It's completely crazy. We're running 3-4 wides, you know, in a pack. There's about there's 8/10 of a second splitting, you know, the first 15 cars when you're on track. It just makes no sense, you know. There's no gap, there's nothing, there's so much turbulence. And you know, like Tony was I remember Tony, because coming out of the meeting, you know, like these two guys, I was beside them and that's what we said. And then also I said, don't you find it strange that we're taking one guy and we're making him start last, 34th. At Indianapolis, we're only taking 33 cars. Track is 2.5 miles. Now we have 34 cars and the track is 1.4 mile. Makes no sense. And, well, where's the respect between, you know, like the series and the team when you have like Penske and Ganassi fighting for the championship? You have Dario and Will working so hard to get to that point and fight for the championship. And now you're putting all this emphasis on this promotional thing where someone's going to start last and win the race. I mean, what do you think? Like the other 33 guys are a bunch of, you know, like no good? I mean, there's two guys fighting for the championship up front, and one guy's going to start 34th and win the race. Like, you know, it was to me kind of I don't know, it was weird. It was,
Listen, I was in that meeting with you.
Yeah.
I was in that meeting with you. And
you remember?
Yeah. I mean, me and you were pissed a little bit just because we felt like we got, you know, shoved to another ride, but nobody was happy about it.
No.
And as it turns out, you know, we had Rob Edwards on here a month or so ago, and we could barely talk about the Dan situation then, you know, but, as it turned, you know, it's so, I don't want to say it's funny, but you think back, you know, you talk about the number 11. Greg didn't have to race that day. He could have bowed out, had the sub driver. Worst case scenario could have been you, right? Then we go to, well, the Alex Zanardi race, like you say, 9/11. That race could have easily been called off.
9/11, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Could have easily been called off. And then, you know, we lose Dan for no reason. Like, it was for a reason, but it was another weird situation that totally could have been avoided. All three of them.
Yeah, it was 99, 11 laps into the race, 33, 66, 11 laps before the end of the race, 77, 11 laps into the race. I'm not saying that if you're racing number 77 or 88 or whatever, something's going to happen. But I just think that when you look at all these similarities and all these things that happen throughout the years, they're not there to tell you that double-digit number are bad luck. They're there to maybe make you realize or make you understand, you know, like what just happened. Because I think as human beings, okay, we don't have the luxury to have a remote control to do a mistake and then rewind it to not do a mistake. In life, when you start as a kid, you end up learning from your mistakes. But I'm a big believer that you can't just be making mistakes. You learn, you don't make them. You make mistakes, you learn. I think there's also signs in life, and signs are there to even, you know, like teach you something or to question yourself or question others or your decisions or decisions of others. And were you following? Were you not following? Whatever it is. But I just think that these similarities and things that, you know, like pop to your eyes now when you look at it and you're wondering and you say, wow, this is crazy. Like 11 laps, 11, and the numbers. and all this stuff. And then when you look at the situation, one guy didn't have to race, could bail out. Like all the running 34 cars, on a smaller, mild track, smaller. When you run 33 at Indy, like everything felt wrong. Plus, when we come out of the meeting, everybody felt like we shouldn't race there, right? And
that's a bad state of mind.
Yeah,
exactly. And we erased, and something happens. And I would even go further and say that there was another instance in IndyCar where we avoided probably like another death, was in Texas when they canceled that race because we were running 241 miles an hour average speed. And I will always remember Alex was there too. And he said, I don't even have the time to see, like where I'm going. It's just too fast. I can't even touch the sway bar. I mean, it was crazy. And Gugelmin crashed in turn 2 and ended up stopping his car in turn 4. Something crazy like that. And finally, they realized by doing all these tests and the black box and sending all the info about, G-forces and stuff like that, that the drivers were going to be at risk of passing out because blood was coming down and the equilibrium from having G's on 2 X's was all messed up. Anyway, but someone pulled the trigger there, right? And they were trying to make the race happen. And I remember, like it was yesterday, the engine manufacturer, they didn't want to lower their boost level. They didn't want to do any compromise, okay, because of their engines. They didn't want to do anything to start the race at a very lower speed. And fair enough, like these guys, they think that it could damage their engine and it could, whatever it is. But when nobody was able to get aerodynamic pieces on the car to slow the car down and do it from the engine side, well, someone said, we cancel it. And we saved someone that day, I guarantee you. But if we would have raced in those conditions with all these warnings, something would have happened for sure.
Well, I think I told Mark this before. I know he's got something for you here, but the year we won the pole at Indy, 227 average lap time, we go to Texas the next week, win the pole, but the same speeds and the track was a mile less. It's crazy.
Yeah. And in racing, engineers, drivers, we all have these numbers. We're not stupid. We can see, if you're running the same speed in a bowl, right, that is a mile less, well, there you have your answer. It's nuts.
I just wanted to invite everybody to please join us next week for the second part of our visit with Alex Tagliani. Alex is one of the most interesting guys I know, and his energy is infectious, which I'm sure you saw in our conversation with him. Mark, please tell our great listeners once again how they can support us.
Yeah, we always tell you to head to our Facebook page by simply searching Wingnut Sports, and we're also at Wingnut Sports on both Instagram and Twitter, and especially for this episode, visit our website at wingnutsports.com. Click on the show notes so you can find all the social links for us and for Alex Tagliani. And hey, don't forget to like and follow us. It would mean a ton.
Absolutely. This has been the Driver in Deep podcast with your hosts, Mark and Alex. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a fantastic week, everybody.
Well, we're wide open sideways.
All right, you're clear.
The talk is cheap.
You're clear on that.
We got the foot to the floor. We're gonna drive her in deep.
Gonna be on the inside of you. All right, you're clear. Got a slow boat coming up on your inside. All right, you're clear. You're clear on this. Gonna be on the inside of you. All right, you're clear.